Redditors with unstable exes. What's the craziest thing they did after you guys broke up? Serious, NSW. An ex-girlfriend signed me up for a paid membership in the Ku Klux Klan. That never goes away. For some reason I pictured membership to the KKK being more involved. Didn't realize it was not unlike a gym membership or magazine sub. Came in 4 hours after saying she was going to the store to buy some milk. S-faced drunk. And without the milk. She then proceeded to try to stab me to death with scissors when I asked about the milk. Had to call the cops to come get her. After locking herself in her room and trying to tell the cops the blood in the bathroom, mine, was hers. They finally got her and hauled her away. It was pretty obvious what happened, especially considering I was stone cold sober and bleeding. Slept with another guy, got pregnant, had an abortion, and showed proof to me so I'd think she'd aborted my own child. The proof was medical documentation, not an aborted fetus on my doorstep. Smashed my new 50 inches TV, slashed all my tires, and threw my laptop in the bathtub. He had to pay for it all though, so I didn't press charges. Dumbass left me a bunch of texts saying he would do it. My phone was dead at the time so I didn't see them till after the damage was done. So he was easily caught. Oh, and it was perfect timing since it was close to Christmas and I ended up buying a nicer 55 inches TV because of all the after Christmas deals. This happened to my brother's fiance, Kim. A few years before Kim met my brother, she started dating this guy named Paul. They were both about 23 years old. Paul was an eccentric, moody, introverted but apparently charming jazz guitar player whose father was a very wealthy banker type, so Paul really had zero financial worries. He also had spent his senior year of high school in and out of a mental hospital for depression, anxiety or something along those lines. Despite being very good looking, Kim was his first girlfriend. Right away he was pretty much obsessed with her for the 1 year they dated. He would stalk her when she went to her college classes at a campus 40 miles from where he lived, would call up her friends whom he'd never met and ask where she was, etc., etc. He started out pretty subtle about this and was able to hide it for a while, but eventually Kim couldn't, increasingly his creepy behavior and erratic mood swings. It broke her heart to do so, but she had to break up with him. The guy did not take this well at all, had some sort of mental breakdown. At 2 AM a few days after the breakup, he showed up at her parents' house where she lived with a knife and threatened to slit his own throat on her doorstep. Kim talked him down and he apparently realized that he was acting insane and left, promising not to scare her again. In spite of all this, Kim still kept in contact with him to make sure he was doing alright. He apparently got much better after couple weeks and moved out of state to live with his old friend's bandmates. About 6 weeks passes. She doesn't hear from him. Around this time she comes home and notices an unpleasant smell outside her house. Another day or two passes and the smell intensifies. Her father, investigating under the crawl space of the house, finds Paul's decaying body underneath the house. He had apparently crawled directly under her bedroom and overdosed on some sort of prescription meds. What's worse is that the body contained a suicide note addressed to Kim. I haven't been told what it said, but I don't think I want to know. Holy frick. This one takes the cake. He got a tattoo of my name 3 days after I told him I never want to see him again, and he showed up to my house to show me the tattoo. I slammed the door in his face. The only woman's name a man should get a tattoo of is his mother's. All other relationships involving tattoos are cursed. Walked 3 miles to my house with a pot of mac and cheese because her parents took away her car for being crazy and stalking me. After I didn't come outside, she started banging pots and pans together, flinging mac and cheese everywhere. Then slit her wrists. Freaking insane. Yes, she lived. Another minor detail that adds to the crazy was that she actually lived about 20 miles away from me. So she became friends with a girl, the house she walked 3 miles from, and stayed over at her house in order to get within striking distance. So this was planned for over a month. During college I went on one date with a girl I'd met in line at the bookstore. It was a nice dinner followed by drinks at the bar and the night ended at her place. I thought I legitimately liked her. The next evening she called to ask if we could hang out, but I had a birthday party to attend with a bunch of guy friends and wouldn't be available. She showed up at the bar we were at and I chatted for a minute but explained I was spending time with the guys. and would call her some other time. She seemed agitated. The party moved on and I started getting texts from her every 10 minutes for the rest of the night. I responded to none of them, and they got progressively angrier. You should ditch your friends. Why are you being such a jerk tonight? Frick you butthole. I swear I'm not crazy. I'm sorry. High life big guy. Come over and I'll make it up to you. Frick you etc etc. The next morning I had received a total of 24 text messages, 8 calls, 10 AIM messages, 2 Facebook messages, and 1 long email trying to explain herself. I saw her in passing several times through the rest of college. She usually gave me an angry glare. TL. DR. Clinger alert. That might be a stage 6. I was my ex's emergency contact. He broke up with me in August and having been dumped I stopped taking his calls and answering his texts. This went on for a month and a half. In early October I got a call from the hospital saying they needed me to come in as I was his emergency contact. He was a delivery driver for a restaurant and got hit by a car. Thankfully he was just scratched and bruised but nothing major. We checked out and I dropped him off at home. As he's getting out of the car he says, "I'm glad you came. I didn't know what else to do to finally get you to talk to me again." I was livid. I told him to get out. Holy crap. She texted me one day and told me she didn't want to be together anymore and that she wanted to go back with her ex. She was kinda controlling girl anyway and I didn't mind. But 2 days later she told me she wasn't on birth control while we were seeing each other and she lied so she could try to have a kid with me. She just wanted a kid so I was basically sperm to her. My 19-year-old self was freaking the frick out for a few weeks and imagining a terrible life of crappy job and a horrible baby mama situation. Luckily she wasn't pregnant and she kept begging me to come frick her like 3 times in a month. I said no thanks every time and she ended up getting pregnant by some other guy. I just laugh every time I think about her really dumb life. Go to feel a little bad for the other guy though. Ex crap on my porch for a whole week after I broke up with her. Every morning I went out to get the paper and on my doormat was a crap. This only stopped when I involved local law enforcement. She told me that her ex, they were together at the time, enrolled in the same class in junior college with her so they can be in class together. One day he caught her glancing at another guy in class and proceeded to beat the crap out of her later that night. So she got with me instead. We live 25 miles apart and I could only see her about 4 days out of the week. Eventually she broke up with me because I couldn't see her every day. She went back to woman beat a dude because she said she'd rather get beaten because it shows that he loves her with all his attention. A year later I ran into her randomly with a baby. She said she regrets leaving me. Q. Earlier this year a buddy of mine was contacted by a local police department. Apparently the ex-BF of his new, for at least a year, girlfriend had put a hit out on the girlfriend, her family, and the new boyfriend, my buddy. To make it worse, the ex-BF was an attorney and had hired a client of his that had been acquitted of murder in 2008. If you screenshot it people will still be able to find it by googling the phrases used in the article. Tore a small ornamental tree out of my front lawn and threw it onto my roof. Created a fake Facebook using a mutual, distant friend's name and started talking to me for weeks until I agreed to meet. He showed up as if the old switcheroo was going to draw me back in, and when it didn't he tried to shame me for meeting strangers. Called me up sobbing and told me he had AIDS. There was more, but these are just the highlights that still rankle a bit. My ex went out of her way and became friends with my new girl at the time. What makes it even worse, they became best friends. I got the F out. You missed out on psycho 3-way fricking session. Moved home, knowingly became HIV positive. Sent me a copy of the test with a note that said I did this because you left me. Have a happy life. My ex so of 2 years broke it off because she didn't want to be in a long distance relationship while she studied abroad. Perfectly fine by me since she was doing 2 stints in a row and I wouldn't see her for a year and a half. Summer to end of next summer. She Skype calls me about 3 weeks after we broke up and about 2 weeks after she starts studying abroad to ask for help getting a guy to date her. Being the always overly nice guy that I am I say sure, but if I do this I expect you to cut all ties with me forever unless it's an emergency. She complied. I told her to just ask him out. It works. I hang up. She Skype calls me a month later saying it's an emergency. She wants to end it because he is not like Spanish me after all but doesn't know how. I told her the best dong repellent is to ask him to help her pick up another guy and hung up. Golden. I broke up with her and she said that she didn't want me around the apartment I was mostly paying for. I told her I needed access to my belongings and so I would need to come into the apartment to get them. She flips out and starts trying to wrench my keys out of my pocket and hitting me. When this proves fruitless, she physically blocks the door to the room I am in and doesn't let me out. I try to squeeze by her without pushing too hard. She starts slapping and scratching me. I get tired of this and threaten to call the cops. I dial and she finally gets out of the way. Unfortunately, the cops had to come anyway because it was a domestic dispute and instantly start trying to drag me out of my own apartment. I had to inform them that it was actually me that called and not the sobbing girl, because she had become abusive and I wasn't going to get physical with her. TLDR. Had to call the cops on an ex because she was going batshit insane. It does generally seem like gender profiling in domestic abuse cases is more common than I had hoped. Dated a guy my senior year of high school who went to a different school. I was 18 and he told me he was 17. I broke it off after I moved away to college. He ended up adding all of my new college friends I was making. He then proceeded to contact all of them to explain how he was 15 when we dated and I was a diddler who liked little boys. I called him and asked what the frick he was talking about and he explained that if I lost all my new friends and was having a miserable time, then I'd come back home and we would be together. For the record, he ended up being 16 during the 2 months we dated. Still not cool. So I was his first real girlfriend. He was 30 at the time. We had lived together for just over a year but it just wasn't working out. The actual breakup lasted about 2 months. My son and I stayed with my mom during that time, and he claimed he just needed time to deal with things. I hadn't heard from him for a few days so I went by the house to check on things and he was gone. The only thing missing was his gun. For 2 weeks nobody heard from him but he was actively checking his messages on Facebook. He didn't even call into work. When he finally did answer his phone he said he had been backpacking the neighboring states and wasn't coming back for any of his belongings. It's been a little over a year and all of his things are still in my garage. I later found out he stole a bunch of my lingerie pieces. It was like he didn't want me to have a complete set so he took either the bra or panties. Not both. My apologies for the wall of text. And man does it feel good to vent. That's weird. I can pick a few things out of the vast ocean of crazy that is my ex. She called 2 different jobs and proceeded to tell my boss that I was a bad person, crazy, unreliable, and I should be fired. She actually called one of my bosses about 40 something times in a row. She threw the top of a BBQ grill at me because I left to go to work. She threw gravel at my car after I didn't agree to her schedule. That's right, I got her pregnant. Now I am the custodial parent. BTW. She only sees the kiddo on the weekends. She threw a metal chair at my sliding glass doors. She got me arrested. This one takes some explanation. She was in a rage because I was going to drop off our child at her mom's. She had found out I was seeing someone else. This was many months after we'd broken up. I had stopped in the street in front of her mom's house to get some of the child's stuff out of the trunk. The kid is asleep in the back of the car. BTW. She pulls up behind, jumps out, and starts taking my girlfriend's stuff out of the trunk. She starts making fun of this girl, who she'd never met, for wearing makeup. She then slaps it off the back of my car into the snow on the side of the road. As I'm trying to pick it up, she kicks it. The bag opens. Makeup goes flying all over the place. I start trying to pick it up, and she starts trying to kick it away from me. So I stand up and push her back. I push her on her sternum area. This was a mistake. She calls the cops, says I was abusing her, and I get to spend the night in jail. I could go on, but I think the picture is painted. ETA. I decided to add a few things. She also smashed the lights and windshield of my car. I loaned her a newer car that we had bought when we were together so she could go to Colorado and work. She ended up taking the car for a month. Drove all the way from Kansas to Oregon and everywhere in between, without telling me, leaving me to care for our child. She ended up getting arrested when I took the cops with me to get my car back. A few weeks later she tried to steal the car back from me and ended up damaging the window. She was involuntarily committed a few times for suicidal actions. She was a peach. I get to see her in court today. She would text me, tell me that her daughter missed me and that she wanted to work things out. Come to find out, she was telling a common friend that I was making her go places when she was the one calling and asking me to meet her. Also found out that 4 months after we slept together last, that she was going to try to report me to the police for forcing myself on her. All this info came to me from a common friend when he realized that she was lying, due to the fact that she said I punched her and had no bruises. There is a 1 foot height and almost 200 pounds weight difference. Honestly, she had been so honest and straightforward before that it really broke my hair all over again. To think that she would spread that kind of rumor about me when all I ever did was care for her and be patient with her and her daughter destroyed me more than the actual breakup. During the divorce process, had a gangbang in the back of a club with 7 or 8 guys. After the divorce process, took out credit in my name 3 times. Succeeded the first time when the place she did it at just let her sign my name. My attorney took care of that one. The others she was flatly denied because I had a notation put on my credit report. She was denied $2,000 a month alimony in the divorce as well. We were engaged 6 months from getting married. We'd been together 5 years. He started getting me in the last 2 years or so. We got into a fight and he decides it's the time to tell me he's been picking up random chicks at the bar and bringing them home to frickin' our bed. This is while I was working 2, sometimes 3 jobs to support him through school. When I told him that was it, I was leaving, I knew it was going to be bad. He locked me in our bedroom, no phone, he nailed the window shut. I spent a day in there before one of our friends stopped by and I was able to holler and get them to let me out. I had a couple of friends help me collect what few things I was taking as I was afraid to be alone with him. Most of my belongings were left behind. He would harass and scream and then beg and cry the 3 trips we made to move things. I was bartending back then and he'd show up and wait in the parking lot until I was off work. He'd try to push me around, decked me a couple of times because I just wasn't listening to him trying to apologize. He'd follow me to my new apartment. I know he broke into my apartment at least twice while I was at work, left messages to let me know he'd been there. From the bar, I'd made friends with several of the county sheriff's officers as they would have to come break up bar fights quite often. I told them about it. They had a friendly talk with him one night when he was waiting for me outside the bar. I never saw him again. I hope the message of that talk was mostly communicated through their fists. Demanded I pay more than the court-mandated amount for child support. When I said no, she called the police on me saying I had kidnapped our daughter when it was during my visitation. Craziest? Tried to kill himself by eating apple seeds because he read they have cyanide or something in them. This was 8 years ago and he hasn't had a girlfriend since he left me. Hope he smoked some cigarettes to kill the bacteria in his stomach. Kind of hard to pick the single craziest thing, but maybe we can do a short list. 1. I was the head varsity cheer coach at my town's high school, and she called the athletic director with an anonymous tip that I was fricking several of the girls. Obviously I wasn't. I wouldn't even allow myself to be left alone with less than 3 of them, because even a rumor like that could ruin my life career. 2. She came over to my house to talk, read, yell at me and probably assault me, uninvited, and when I refused to come out and talk to her, she tried kicking in the door. When that proved to be an unsuccessful venture, she stormed back to her car, but not without first kicking my car and leaving a massive dent in the side of it. I watched her do this, yet she still denied having done it. 3. She called the police to tell them that I was selling herb to high school kids. Of course I wasn't. I wasn't selling it to anyone, let alone high school kids, which would have endangered both my coaching job, and I was working as a substitute teacher for the school district at the time. 4. She slashed her own goddamn tire, and called the police to tell them that I had done it. Luckily I was verifiably out of town during the window of opportunity, so nothing came of it. 5. We had a storage unit together, and during the breakup, she stole my key to it. Afterwards, she was holding my stuff for ransom until I met her ridiculous demands. I of course, failed to do so, and she ended up either keeping destroying, giving away, or selling all of my crap, which included a bunch of my books, DVDs, clothes, a nice expensive body piercing kit, and a ton of irreplaceable mementos. 6. She messaged, harassed me on FB, then got upset because I wasn't being very nice to her and called the police on me for harassing her. 7. She stalked my Reddit profile, created an account just to harass me here, then created another one to do more crap talking after she realized that the mods had done something to her account and I wasn't getting her messages. I reported her again, and haven't heard anything from her since. I'm hoping that the mods maybe banned her IP so that she couldn't access Reddit at all, because that would taste super justicey. Or maybe she was just warned and she is still checking up on my post history. She has since moved on to attempting to ruin other people's lives, which unfortunately includes other people that I know. And of course, this is just the stuff that she did after we broke up. If you guys would like to hear about some of the psycho crap she pulled while we were together, I'd be happy to share if there is some interest. TLDR. If you're still stalking me SC Ariel, I hope that karma catches up with you sooner rather than later. I feel like I might have won this thread lost in life. My ex walked into Thanksgiving dinner while my stepfather was putting the turkey on the table, demanded to know if I was sleeping with the girl that was there. She then tried to steal my phone and after 10 more minutes of her screaming obscenities proceeded to steal my bed. I mean, she literally took my mattress and box spring through the house, brought them out on the front lawn. She quickly realized that her Honda Civic wasn't going to be able to transport my mattress and box spring. So she took the only reasonable course of action and proceeded to stand on them so that I couldn't get them back. She made a phone call and a few minutes later her sister showed up with a truck. She screamed have fun fricking on the floor, loaded my bed into the truck, then got in her car and left. That was 2 years ago. I'm still with the other girl and I did indeed enjoy fricking her on the floor. Anyone asking why I didn't call the cops? To be honest, it would have been useless. It would have delayed the meal longer. They wouldn't have gotten to my house in time to stop her. And by the time they did get to my house, that bed was already in whatever dumpster she threw it in. A week after I had kicked her out, she walked into my apartment drunk as heck with her new boyfriend and a couple of his friends at 3 AM. Guessed she still had a key. I jumped out of bed, ran into the living room and asked her what the frick she was doing there. Her new boyfriend got in my face saying she and I were in a common law marriage because we had lived together for so long, and they were too drunk to drive back home, so they were gonna sleep in the living room. I threatened to call the police. Voices got raised. My ex finally said that they'd be more comfortable sleeping in their car outside. I went back to bed where a new girl was still naked and confused. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.